Okay, so it's been about 2 weeks since I hosted my first little pop-up mini market with my studio mate Chelsea, and I am going to talk today all about how it went, what went well, what we do differently, all that stuff. So if you're interested in hearing more, stay tuned. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Steph. My company is Bushyl. I make handmade soap and candles, bath salts, lip balms, all kinds of different stuff. And I love to talk about behind the scenes of running my business. And this was like a biggie for me. I was very excited about this pop-up. And I've been talking about it a little bit on here and there, but not, I wanted to after the event, give a full recap of how everything went and just behind the scenes of the whole event. I'll start by saying that Chelsea is the person who shares my studio space with me. She's a photographer here in Milwaukee. She's amazing. We're also friends outside of our businesses. But because we have this space together now, we really wanted to find ways to utilize it that brings in additional income for us or creates ways for the community to get together, ways for us to connect with other business owners, all kinds of different things that just are things that we'd want to attend if we weren't hosting them. And so we had the idea of doing a little pop-up mini market. So the space is not huge, and we knew that we could host a limited number of vendors. But we also have a driveway on the side of our space. It's just a single story building. So there's no one else in our building except for the two of us. And then we have a driveway right next to it. So we loved the idea of maybe having a food vendor or a drink vendor. And then inside, I would obviously have my stuff set up in my existing space, but then Chelsea's space is this big open photo studio. And we knew that we had enough spaces for maybe 5 other vendors. And so we moved in January, and when we started discussing a good date to have our first event, we wanted to put it far enough off that we had plenty of time to plan it. And I also knew that Mother's Day weekend was a huge weekend for me. Last year, I did a market, an outdoor market, and it was my best sales day of the year outside of holiday markets. So I think we both agreed that this Mother's Day pop-up would be a really good idea. Most of our friends are mothers, so right off the bat, we have a good audience to pitch that sort of thing to. And so we picked the date, which was the Saturday before Mother's Day. We wanted to give people that push to get any last minute gifts, or if you are a mom yourself, maybe bring yourself and treat yourself with some of these great things that we have. And so we knew that we wanted that date. Then once we had the date figured out, we started brainstorming which vendors we were hoping would attend. And we thought of various categories of makers or businesses that we would want to see at a market if we were there. We're both friends. Chelsea's always been very close with a local ceramicist, and now that I've sort of met her more through Chelsea, love her to death. Her name is Kim. Her business is Covet and Ginger. She makes beautiful ceramics. And so we felt confident that she would be involved. She was one of our first choices and first people that we talked to about this. And so we had a ceramicist. So because we had such a limited number of spaces to host makers, we wanted one per category. We thought it would be silly to have 2 ceramicists there, because we also really wanted this event to be good for the people who were taking the time to do this as well. Then we thought someone who does jewelry would be great. And this is a little bit, it's not like a traditional jewelry vendor, but there is a jewelry maker here in Milwaukee who does, it's called Bond Bracelet Bar. And so she connects a delicate gold chain onto your wrist or your ankle, in the spot, on the spot, and then there's no clasp, and it just stays on until it falls off. And it's very cool and very popular. When this setup is at an event, they're pretty much nonstop doing this. So that was our first choice for jewelry, and we reached out to the woman who does it. It's Paloma Wilder, and she also said yes. And then we like, once people started saying yes, it was, I think we both expected more no's from people. Like we really thought more people would be like, it's an unproven event. We don't know how many people are going to show up. We don't know if it's worth our time. Um, but we got a yes from them. We had a baker come who makes the most beautiful decorated cookies and cupcakes. Her name is Alexis from Yield Bakehouse. And that was like, I thought that was just like such a nice addition to have these like really beautiful cookies. They're such a good like add-on gift for a mom or anybody. And then we reached out to Michael at 41 Floral, who I had worked with on a custom candle for her shop. She does beautiful floral arrangements. She said yes, that she would bring some like grab and go bouquets. She also had some of our custom candles for sale, which was like so fun that those could be part of her setup as well. And then this, we weren't sure if they'd be interested, but there is a vintage vendor that we know who sells mostly online. They've got a website, they sell on Instagram and like Facebook Marketplace. But I had been at an event where they had a setup and we reached out to them. It's Hello Home Vintage. And what was great that we could offer, because it's our space, and I know that I always want to do this and it's never an option, but we told everybody, if you want to set up the night before, you're more than welcome to. And Jess from Hello Home Vintage gave us the feedback that that's part of why she said yes, because she has so much to set up. She's got all of this, like all these breakable pieces, vintage stuff, artwork. They've got like a big heavy table that's part of their display. And she's like, when I have to do all of that and then like look presentable and be in like sales mode, she's like, it's too much for one day. So something to keep in mind if you're hosting your own event. If there's a way to allow people to set up the night before, go for it. And obviously that's not always an option if you are renting a third party space or if you're doing it like in an event space that like has weddings the night before or whatever. But we were really, I think that was really nice feedback for us to get, that like that's something that helped her make the decision to do it. And then for our food and drink vendors, there is a company here called Cordial Co. And they have the cutest little beverage wagon you've ever seen. I was at an event where they were outside serving up cold brew, and it's so delightful to look at, and the owners are so great. And so we reached out to her again, not sure if it was something that she'd want to do, and she said yes. She brought, oh my God, she brought kombucha, locally made kombucha. There's a kombucha company here called Soul Brew. Delicious stuff. And then she had like a hibiscus agua fresca, also amazing and kid friendly, which was nice because people came with kids. And then she also had cold brew, which is like, well, the cold brew they get is so delicious. I don't know where it's from, but it's so good. So they also said yes. And then our food choice is Press Waffles. I used to be in the same building as Press. They have a cafe in the third ward, and then they make their products on the second floor. And I was on the second floor as well. And the owners are just some of the nicest people. I loved I actually like really miss, now that I'm not in the building anymore, getting to like pop in and talk to them and say hi. And so they were our first choice for a food vendor, and they also said yes. So there was one vendor, we had a paper goods vendor that we were hoping to secure, and they had a schedule conflict. But again, everyone was so gracious and lovely. We were not charging a vendor fee for any of these spots. I think because it was such a unproven event, like we had no idea how this would go. We really cared more about getting the right mix of people in the space and having the vendors that we loved there. And so we decided that we didn't need to charge anybody for that. So maybe that was part of why they said yes as well. There was like much less risk in doing the event because you weren't paying a vendor fee for any of it. But we were so happy with that lineup. But then I think it got us like really energized for the event because we were, again, this is something I would want to go shop at if I were not hosting it myself. We worked next on like the marketing plan because that was the biggest what if of all of it was, are people going to show up to this? And it's very scary because you can't really control that. You can obviously promote it as much as you want, but it's not a ticketed event. We weren't charging people to come. We didn't require RSVPs. So we had no real feedback on whether or not people would be there. And that was very nerve wracking. Like I definitely lost sleep thinking like, what do we do where it's going to be so stressful if we're all standing there and there's no one there. And I really dreaded that possibility for longer than I would like to admit, but it was definitely something that scared me. But because we weren't collecting any money from the vendors, we really didn't want to pay for promotion. So whether that's like social media ads or whatever it would be, we didn't really want to lose money on this event. And so we felt confident that we could put together a social media push that was worth that effort and would do the job for us. Part of that was coming up with the initial post. I put together in Canva a like teaser image that just had the date, the time, and the location, and it said like Mother's Day pop-up. And then in the teaser image, we like tagged the vendors who had committed to the event. So that was sort of like the initial push. I think we started that a month out because you don't want to start too far out, like overloading people with information, because I think that people sort of like tune it out after a while. So we did the initial teaser a month out. And then the vendors themselves also did a great job of sharing this event. So between that initial teaser image and when we did our countdown, which I'll explain in a second, the vendors were also sort of sharing like, hey, these are our upcoming events. Here's this image, here's a countdown, that sort of thing. So I really think that the vendors were helping spread the word to their followers and their audience to draw those people in as well. And then our last minute push, which I really wanted people to get excited right before the event, because you want it to be top of mind right before it's about to happen. And so when we were 10 days out from the event, we every single day did an Instagram carousel where the first image was X amount more days. So the first one we did was 10 more days. That was the first image. That's all it said. Then as you scrolled through the carousel, there were images of whichever vendor we were promoting on that day. So 10 days out, I think we started with Press Waffles because they're pretty well known in the area, and I think people love, I mean, their waffles are so good. Like if their waffles are at an event, I'm getting them. That's just like, it's a no-brainer. So I think we started with them, and then I just had a schedule for which day would be which vendor. And so the next day it was 9 more days. And so we shared it, both Chelsea and I shared it to our feeds. Then we would share it in our stories. And that got shared around a lot. Like whoever the vendor was who was being promoted that day, they also shared it. And I think that we got a lot of good feedback and good momentum on that. As we got closer and closer, I think 3 days out was Chelsea's business, and that we shared that she would be doing a raffle for a free photo session, which with her is like I don't know the exact dollar amount, but it's hundreds of dollars. And so that was a good promotion. And then I shared my business and that I would have new perfume rollers. So that was like a fun little additional, I think like little bit of excitement around the event was that I'd have a new product there. And then the day before, we used the carousel to just reiterate all of the different vendors that would be there. And again, it's hard to know exactly what sold people on coming to the event, but we had a steady stream of people through the event the entire day. So Right when things opened, there was like a little blip, maybe like 10 minutes of it being a little bit quiet as people trickled in. But from then on, there were always new people showing up. We had tables in the driveway area so that people could get their waffles and sit down. We had like a little kids table with some art supplies so that if people were bringing kids to this event, they weren't going to get bored. They had something to do. The weather ended up being very lovely. It was raining in the morning when I woke up, and I was so stressed because we didn't really have much of a rain plan for the outdoor vendors. We had like a canopy tent that we could put up over the entrance, like where they were getting drinks, but it was really gonna kill the vibe if it was raining steadily. So luckily the rain held off, and then it was like a little bit cool. It was colder outside than we expected it to be, but otherwise sunny and lovely. And so, like I said, people were coming through. It was a lot of our friends, but it was also other small business owners that I had met at events. This was the Saturday after Women's Entrepreneurship Week. So it's kind of nice because there were people that I saw at those events that I had talked to about this market. And it was just like, it was so exciting and heartwarming to have all these people come support us, but also it was really good stuff. Like, again, like I said, even if they were coming just to like support us, they walk away with like good products. I bought, I bought something from like most of the vendors there just because it's all stuff that I want anyway. And so we, at the end of the day, I feel like we got really good feedback from the vendors as well, that they felt like it was worth their time, and which was like, that was a big part of it for us. We really wanted everybody who participated to feel like this wasn't a waste. I think if you're a maker, you've absolutely been to an event where it felt like this day was so slow. I wish I could have just like stayed home. I wish I hadn't wasted my time doing this. And that was a big fear for us, was not having anybody feel like that about the event. But as far as we could tell, nobody felt that way. If they did feel that way, they hid it well from us. But yeah, and we had a few people who sort of even just like wandered in, like they were walking past the building for some other reason and like popped their heads in. So that was exciting too, because I feel like, again, new people being exposed to our businesses, and just like having something cool in the neighborhood happening is always fun. It was absolutely a success. It was a great sales day for me too. On top of everything else, like even if I hadn't had a great sales day, I would have felt good about how things went. But I had a really good sales day, and it was so nice to have had a good sales day where I did not have to pack up all of my stuff, haul it somewhere, get it set up, and then haul it home at the end of the night. Like it was so lovely at the end of the event to just like, there's like a little bit of cleanup, like we like took the garbage out and stuff like that, but otherwise it was really really nice. And it was also really fun to have proven this concept, you know, to have put an event together, me and Chelsea, and have it be a success. It's like a real, it's just really exciting. And I felt like I left the event with all of these ideas for other things that we can do. And it's just like, it was just like a really good feeling to have gotten that support from the community, to feel like this is something that we can continue to pursue in terms of other events that would be fun to do in the space. And now we've got another thing that we've done that went well, that like just like helps us build our confidence a little bit, and also helps establish us to the people who've participated, both vendors and attendees, that you can rely on us to like make this a good experience for everyone. So that was really exciting. And side note, in terms of me having a good day, the perfumes went really well too. I got really good feedback on the perfumes. And the one that I sort of put together on a whim, like it was part of the collection and I wasn't sure if it would go over well. It's a scent that I love, but you never know how other people are going to receive it. It's the one I sold the most of. So that was my Nectar. My Nectar perfume roller was the most popular one of the day, but overall sold more than I expected. And I just like, I don't know, I felt really good about that. So yeah, overall, it was great. If there was anything, it's hard to know what I would have done differently. If I'm being totally honest, things went really well. I think possibly what we might do differently is just have someone there who is responsible for floating the event. Like just, you know, because I was in my space, which is separate. Like people had to go out the front door of my space and around to the side door to get to the rest of the vendors. So that's sort of where I was isolated. I couldn't really tell what was going on in the back a lot of the time. And Chelsea was available to float around, but if in the future she wants to maybe sell like 10 or 15-minute portrait sessions at one of these events, we definitely need someone whose sole job is to just manage the event, make sure garbages are getting empty, make sure all the vendors need Wi-Fi. I didn't think about that. And people showed up. And of course, my Wi-Fi is like one of those weird ones that comes standard. So that I think would have been great, is just like have someone whose sole purpose is like managing the event. And then, yeah, otherwise, I don't know. I think maybe some more signage outside of the event. I will say it was pretty clear that something was going on. Like people who wandered in, like it was pretty easy to tell right away, but we had some people come into my space and be like, where's the event? Because if they came from one direction into the building and they were in my space, you can't see the rest of the event from there. So a lot of them were like, is this the right place? And so if we had I think maybe better signage would have helped that confusion. It wasn't, again, I don't think it stopped anybody from coming to the event, but it would have been just another nice thing to really flesh out like the idea and make sure that everything's up to our standards. But otherwise, yeah, I think we plan to do this again. It does take a lot of work. And like I said, we didn't make any money directly from hosting the event. I obviously made money in sales, and Chelsea had a sign up for her raffle. So she did collect email addresses, which is very valuable. But we loved this type of event. I think we'll definitely do this again next year. And then I think we also maybe want to find a time in the fall before like the really crazy holiday markets start, like doing a fall one. But then in between, yeah, coming up with other ideas for events that will be good in the space, and yeah, just continue to foster the community and allow us to be creative in new ways and make use of this space. And it's just like, it was just really fun. And I'm very grateful to everyone who participated, whether they were vendors there or if they came and shopped the event. It was just such a lovely day, and I left feeling really great. So days like this, I really enjoy owning my own business and taking these risks. It's very comforting when it pays off. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you could give it a thumbs up, that would be so great. It helps me reach other viewers like you. And if you want to keep seeing my videos, you can subscribe to the channel so you get notified every time I publish a new one.